Thank you. So, yes, I've given this talk a very hyperbolic title, Attempting the Possible, Choosing an ERN for 10,000 users. Right, so I've got a very key stage 2 narrative development tool, which is we work through the 6 W's, so who, what, where, when, why, how. Fortunately, and as I expected, Sam has done an incredible job on the why, so I'm not going to do that bit so much. Okay. So who am I and why am I talking to you today? As I said, I'm Dr. James Bird. I'm at the University of Manchester. I was a chemist and then I did a material science PhD. And during that time, I used a electronic research notebook. I spoke about it, which essentially got me scouted for the current role, which is hot defence. I'm a professional services and technical specialist, and I'm leading out a central ERN implementation at the university. So yeah, for a bit of structural context, the project is being led out of the Research Lifecycle Programme, which is the university's key strategic investment in the research capabilities. And it's 25 million over 5 years. So yeah, it's a big investment. And it's nothing based with research IT, which obviously has obvious benefits when you're doing sort of software deployment. So, despite what the title said, we are not choosing an ERN for anyone, and definitely not for 10,000 users. So 10,000 is the size of our whole research audience, so research community. So that's research academics, research and teaching academics, PGRs, and about 1,000 research technical professionals as well, who, as you can imagine, facilities managers will probably want to need access also. So what we are trying to do is choose ERNs with researchers, change management, but we said not necessarily one. We've said we're aiming to centrally implement at least one ERN, depending on whether we can spot functional diversity across the requirements from our audience. And of course, critically, probably the hardest part will be establishing a service which is successful then going forward once we've actually got the software in place. So again, I wanted to give a bit of an example of how we're trying to do this, and an obvious challenge is trying to shortlist options from the numerous options available. So yeah, there are tons of options and there's no clear front rule. So how do we begin to match demand for certain functionalities against the existing systems? How do we demonstrate to end users their influence on the decision making? And then for the unconvinced, how do we demonstrate superiority of some of these specialized systems over the generic option? A suggestion is to try and do that with openness, reproducibility, and responsibility at the core, which is not coincidentally the theme which the project lives under also. So to dive into this kind of shortlisting aspect of it, we have engaged with the researcher community, and through sales interviews and Qualtrics survey, we've got about 100 responses so far, and we've based those discussions in the survey on the ELN Finder metadata schema. So if you haven't been on there, yes, fantastic resource. And the metadata schema is effectively where a group of agreed upon the attributes which are present and consistent across notebooks. So what better basis to ask people about what functionalities they would like to see present in their notebooks. Actually, yeah, we've collected then desire for these features and attributes and some minimum metadata on the participants to enable us to then spot that functional diversity that may be required. And in the spirit then of openness and so on, we've got this posted on GitHub. This is a work in progress, but in theory, well, you can go and reproduce what's on there currently. But we've got kind of machinery. Jupyter Notebook sits behind this, and we are representing those attributes in a plot. This is the generic overview plot, and again, based on the ELN metadata schema. And then we are re-representing the individual inputs from the interview participants in this kind of engagement section. So this is sort of pseudonymized inputs. So we've got an individual saying they want user training there, the ability to find their own templates and so on. So people can go and check back in on this and figure out whether what they said is indeed we captured that correctly, and they can then change their input as a solution. So And then this obviously leads to the ability to shortlist. So this is a heat map showing those grouped attributes and matched against so many 60 odd notebooks. So yeah, we can use that then. We can obviously have filters over this for the different stakeholder groups. And so hopefully we can say, oh, it looks like FBMH really benefit from this one, and FSE perhaps another. So that hopefully goes some way to answering the questions that we sort of put forward earlier. In terms of that showing the superiority of some of these research specialized tools. And of course, we could also score a paper notebook on this and hopefully demonstrate that these are better suited based on the research community's input. Okay, so now I want to try to dive into the change management bit. So who is actually doing this? Excuse the analogy, how we can consider the whole of the University of Manchester research community as an onion, that it is layered. A subset of them we want to be engaged in the project, or as many as possible. And this is something as we stole, borrowed from Carol Goebel by software engineering apparently, but successful community engineering should allow for people to sort of seamlessly move in and out of these layers. So we've got those who are responsible, sort of heads on the block, me unfortunately at the core, those are observers who are informed, who are staying in touch and receiving the sort of communications. But obviously, if they wanted to get engaged at some point, well, then to be able to shift inwards and contribute in a more consultative way. So yeah, that's what I see the majority of the research community involved in this in some way. And then I wanted to put into context when this is happening as well. So just kind of focus towards the right-hand side for now. So the project, we've said, so the project itself, we've said will last 3 years. And then obviously, as we've sort of mentioned, continuous improvement is going to be critical then onwards to 2027 onwards. Yes, so we're, roughly midway, as before. It's just honestly been a lot of groundwork and politics. And of course, as it shows, the functional requirement gathering was a pretty large part of that. So where does this take place? Well, our research community does not exist in a vacuum. Of course, it exists at the university. It's been shaped by what's come before, of course, and I feel we're in a fortunate position to be able to do this now. And got some fun facts that I figured out a bit. I was able to trace our first ERN spend back 15 years. 10 years ago, when our research IT department was born. I also found traces of the ERN project at the start. I don't know what happened there, but we're 10 years on and we're trying again, and these other things have come along the way. So we've now got obviously the UK reproducibility network that's been launched. We've got an office for open research, and the cyber incident has also done us favours in that there's been more attention drawn to how ITS needs more financing at the university. Okay, so I just wanted to drill down a bit to this sort of contributing layer as well, just to pick out some individuals and how we try to sort of interconnect these networks. So the project I've described as a bottom there in purple is the research lifecycle program, and we've got sponsors and governance provided by senior figures in the Department of Computer Science, and so you have Carol Goebel on sponsorship and Caroline Jane for governance, and then Office for Open Research and a library again, involved in governance. And wanted to shout out this UKRI funded research project, which we recently got successfully awarded funding to carry out. And speak to Dr. Anthony Porter, who's here today as well, about that too. So yeah, hopefully that will allow us to sort of give insight into what has been going on to a much broader audience, because they'll sort of published outputs alongside that. Okay, so next step for us. So by the end of the calendar year, we want to be able to present a full business case. So we're going to go back and ask for to confirm money. So there's the 2 bits in green I've got down the bottom there are kind of business side, and then so the next functional requirement gathering exercise is we can allow that to continue using that process that I described previously. But then one of the big critical parts in the next phase with this sort of usability testing. So we want to be able to allow potential users to work on demo instances to figure out whether they actually do agree with the notebooks, hands-on first before we present that full business case. So that's going to be difficult, as Simon mentioned. I think that's going to take some time. Just to highlight that obviously our community exists amongst all of us, and that makes a really rich soup. So we're here to learn and share. So it's kind of, I suppose, conversation starting options. So to share, definitely I'm starting in this role and don't underestimate the scale of this kind of business change and change management that's required. And it'd be really interesting to know people's thoughts on the role that data stewardship could play in maintaining an ERN service. We're quite young in our sort of stewardship journey at Manchester, early. And yeah, here's some people who have contributed. Thank you.